Hello everyone, what is up? I am Rob.
I'm Eamon.
Damn, son, it is Monster Fuzz.
We've done it again.
Halloween is here. Woo! The 7 days of sound is concluding today.
Yeah. And as it always does, it concludes with our good friends Tim and Alison.
Has to be.
Must be.
Has to be the way for forever and ever. We always have to do it with them on Halloween. Like that, it's not right if we don't. So we're about to record with them. It's going to be kind of a questiony based episode, and also as well, Eamon hasn't really chatted to Tim since he's been on his kind of he's been in the thick of it, shall we say. So hopefully he'll talk about some of his adventures recently with you.
Yeah.
Let you know the crack. That. So yeah, it'll be cool. Also as well, at the end of this episode, folks, our good friends, you might remember back in the day, we played a couple of songs from them, Agency Panic. It's our mates from Wexford, it's their band. They're releasing a new single. In my personal opinion, it's an absolute banger. It's a really good tune, actually. I think it's a really good tune.
It's really good.
I think it's their best tune. And I think it actually showcases a lot of really good musicians from Wexford. Harvey on the drums, son.
Some of the best musicians from Wexford, you would easily argue.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's some of the best in town, for sure. All together in a band. And this track is actually releasing today. Today. Halloween,
is it?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's called Quarter to Nine. Really good tune. Check it out on Spotify. Give the lads a follow. Give it a stream. But yeah, it'll be at the end of this episode, and it's a fun tune. So. Yeah. Right, so the 7 days of Samhain almost concluded. We'd like to remind everyone, if you enjoyed it, to please consider heading on over to Patreon and dropping us some support. What I will say is the way we recorded this week means that there won't be any episode on Monday. There will be a mini fuzz next week, but just not an episode on Monday. So go back and listen to one of these 7 episodes. That
I think we've done enough. Come on, guys.
Yeah. So
be cool.
So you can check out one of those in the meantime, or head on over and check out anyone else's podcast that's been on over these 7 days. So I think we'll leave it there. Emma, if they've got any spooky stories, maybe something happened to them over Halloween, Merle, send them in.
If anything bizarre happens to you on the day that this goes live, monsterfuzzpodcast@gmail.com. Send us in your spooky stories and we will read them on next week's mini fuzz.
I don't know if I finished out the Patreon shout there, but yeah, check out the Patreon if you haven't already, folks. We'll leave it there. I've been Rob.
I'm Eamon.
Monster Fuzz over and out.
Welcome to Strange Familiars and Monster Fuzz.
Fuzzy Familiars.
Get another Halloween episode. Strange Familiars and Monster Fuzz. Allison's here. How you doing, Alison?
I'm doing fine.
What's up, Alison?
Alison refuses to be on camera.
She does right.
You're right too.
You do right, Alison, because honestly, there's a lot of weirdos out there. So
there are a lot of weirdos. There's some in my house.
It is literally, it's one of those things. Like Eamon's sister was on the podcast recently, and I was like battle stations when that video went out. I was like waiting for bullshit comments. You know what I mean? So you're wise.
And she's not even hot. I don't see what everyone's talking about.
Is this year 3 or 4, folks, of the Fuzzy Familiars? I think this is year 3, perhaps.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm getting Christmas and Halloween confused.
Yeah, I think this is year 3. So it's been
I
a
think
good
it's year 3,
which is quite cool.
I still remember, we were only talking about it recently, the first time we did an episode together, and I was like, the actual guy from Strange Familiars? Hardly. It's like, hardly, Rob. It must be some sort of other podcast that's trying to hang on the coattails.
Eamon was fangirling.
I'm notoriously hard to get on podcasts.
You're a slut for podcasts.
I'm a bit of a podcast. I pretend it's just my way of giving back to the community, but really, I'm just a whore.
Actually, Tim, before we get into it, we've got your questions today from your listeners, but you've been out in the field a lot lately, and Eamon is not really privy to the sort of goings on, I suppose. Especially the last time me and you talked at length, it was before we recorded together recently, but you were saying that you went out to a place and there was a bunch of crazy stuff happening. Can you give Eamon a brief synopsis of what's been going on?
Is this the witch diggers?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I haven't had a chance to listen properly yet because I want to get a bit of time, but I've heard lore and it sounds intriguing.
So what I told you off air, probably a lot of it we're saving for the live show.
Yeah.
So there's a story that runs through it The original story of the Witch Diggers is a historical story that I found from 1890s or something. It was the fourth episode of Strange Familiars, and there's a lot of weird Bigfoot stuff and witches and just strangeness in it. And I fell in love with the story, and through a series of amazing synchronicities, the people who own the property contacted me, as did the people who live next to the property. They had us out there, and we had an incredible time. The first time was embedded with so much high strangeness that it just blew our mind. And there's really a thread of a story that runs through it, which is why we're saving it for the live shows. There's a sort of a beginning, middle, and not really an end, but a new starting point, we'll call it. It kind of serves as a breaking point. So a lot of that I can't talk about, but there was so much that went on. And I did mention one of the things we saw was a giant fireball in the sky. The first full night we were there, the first night we arrived real late and just went to sleep. But the first full night we were there in the field, we saw this massive fireball. It sort of came into existence, sort of like from a dot in the sky, and just expanded into existence. This roiling ball of fire. We're guessing anywhere from 25 to 40 feet in diameter, just massive, right over the trees.
Wow.
Descended below the trees, and then these beams of light shot up after it went down. And we were walking towards it, the three of us, Tyler, John, and I, in amazement. And we're kind of walking to that area, and then on the other side of the field, it or one just like it, it seemed, I don't know if it was a different one or the same one, pops up from the other side of the field behind the trees and just peeks above the trees as if to say, yeah, you saw me, and dropped down again, and the beams of light followed. So it's crazy out there.
Multiple witnesses as well, which makes it like the fact that all of you guys seeing it together is fairly, like, it's bizarre stuff, like. And
and it's been really a life-changing thing for the three of us. It really affected us in good and bad ways. It just mind-blowing, and made us rather obsessed with that place. And we returned in October, and had less intense experiences, but recorded some strange howls, and had some Bigfoot-like stuff we were checking into. But mostly we were there sort of gathering information and photos and stuff to help us tell the story when we take it live.
Cool. Yeah,
Incredible.
that actually sounds like it's going to be a really cool show as well, by the way. Just like putting all that together into a kind of a show sounds like it's going to be really entertaining as well. Definitely record a live show if you get a chance, if you have the equipment, because I'd love to see it.
Yeah. Well, we might bring it over there. You might get to see it in person.
Yeah. That's true too.
I suppose without giving anything away, it's like, it seems to be something of a bit of a liminal space where strange things are happening.
Fair warning. I know people like to go to the places we go to. I'm gonna say I wouldn't. These folks that live here told a story of when some people who were they hunt ginseng, and that's you don't go on other people's property, and they had some ginseng hunters come on their property, and the whole neighborhood turned out on four-wheelers and automatic weapons. So
nice.
I would leave these people alone.
Yes.
They're wicked good shots, and they take care of each other out there.
Nice.
It's a very isolated place. They all know each other, and they know when somebody's on their property. Not once they give us free rein.
Yeah.
But not once was I on their property that they didn't know exactly where I was. They would tell me, "Oh, I saw you down, next to the field last night," or I saw you were over here yesterday. I was like, "Yeah, I was." Yeah.
Are they
This is
like
exactly what everyone in Ireland thinks America is, right? Like just people with semi-automatic weapons defending their property. And
This is America
Get
on
off our
Halloween,
land.
so lights in the skies and guns.
yeah, always guns.
Are those them? Is this kind of place like those hollers? Have you heard of those? Yeah, it's like a holler kind of scenario, right? That kind of
and
thing.
there's like 3 to 5 families that live back in this, and they all know each other. They're all taking care of each other. I mean, the story they told me about these ginseng hunters and what they did, how they rolled out, I mean, they're in ghillie suits and automatic weapons and
Nice.
stuff. I was like, yeah, I feel sorry for any Bigfoot people that try to find this place.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, don't do it.
Yeah,
do
it's
not
not
do it.
worth it for the
Yeah.
Sasquatch.
Wonderful people, but they take care of each other and they know exactly who's on their property at any time.
Yeah. No, that sounds good, man. So you've got questions for us all today, do you? It sounds exciting.
Heck yeah! Well, we didn't introduce you. Rob and
yeah.
Eamon are here.
Oh, God.
Monster Fuzz.
It's been that long. Yeah. How's it going, everyone? How are you getting on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you talking to me or you're looking at me?
I'm just
getting
saying, how's it
confused.
going, everyone?
I hope everyone's well.
I was just watching your costumed Halloween episode,
Oh.
and I was like, "Hey, look, it's a troll doll in Mario."
Yes.
It is like literally, isn't it? That's what Kira said to me. She was like, it's like Super Mario costume. Basically, it is. But you were sure
And
you
then
remember
Alison's like,
Street
"No,
Fighter."
no, he's not a troll doll. He's one of those turtles from Mario."
Actually, yeah, I did look like one of the little guys that you know when you fight Bowser's sons.
Yeah, you did look like one of those dudes, actually. But you surely remember Street Fighter, Tim. You were probably around for the arcade heyday.
That was probably during the period where I was not aware of what was going on with video games too much.
Yeah.
I picked it up from context as I watched. I was like, oh, okay, they're Street Fighter guys.
It's like early 90s, basically, that kind of stuff was. So, yeah, I don't know what Tim was up to in the early 90s, but yeah, Street Fighter was probably at its peak around 94, 95 arcades.
If you can remember the 90s, you weren't in the 90s.
Yeah, there you go, then. Enough said.
I can remember them. They were like, we were young.
Yeah. That's why I can't remember them.
But I remember that in lieu of video games, everyone at your college did that thing called mudding.
Mudding?
Oh, yeah.
What's that?
Multi-user dungeons.
What's that?
Like a text-based.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of
it was
dungeon
like kind of
crawling.
like it was right before we could even send like instant messages. Right? It was like right around the time instant messages arrived in the this is during Tim's like 8 years of college. He didn't get a PhD. He just took the leisurely route.
I had a fun time.
Yeah. And that's what it should be about, really.
You were out there mudding, you know what I mean? I can't blame you.
He was in the mines.
What about Dungeons and Dragons? Did you guys do D&D?
Oh yeah, I did. Alison never did. I don't think.
I collected the dice because I thought the dice were cool.
The dice are
That's
cool.
true, yeah.
The dice are cool.
I think that would be the kind of thing that would make Alison just curl up in a ball and die of embarrassment.
Yeah.
Actually, at one point, an ex-boyfriend of mine tried to get me. Oh, he was like, "You'll love this," and I was like, "I don't think I will." And there was I think it was like a vampire themed one called Shadowrunner or Shadow.
Oh, Shadowrun.
Yeah, that's
Shadowrun. Yeah, Shadowrun. And he was like, "Well, you can be a vampire," and you're so goth, you'll love this kind of thing. And I was like, he's like, "You won't even have to be someone else." And I was like, "Well, I can't do this unless I literally get to be me. So unless there's like a character where there's me, I'm not going to feel comfortable doing this." So set up a whole character, got everything ready, did all the stats and everything. And the first night I was like, yeah, I'm out. Sorry, I can't do it.
Yeah, I don't know. D&D is so far now, and I'll never rule it out. I'll never say never. But right now, it's a bridge too far for me.
I don't know anyone who.
But I'll never say never.
I don't know anyone who has played it and sort of said, "I know that's crap." Like everyone I know who plays it seems to really enjoy it, but I've never played it, and I don't think I have the patience to play it.
And it makes great, actually, podcast content. There's some really good D&D podcasts.
Yeah, there's some fantastic ones. So my problem is like when I played it, I was always like, I was never like embodying the character, like
right.
Curse you, you demonic elf, get out of my way. Nothing like that. It was, my guy does this. I don't say, you know what I mean? So I don't know if I ever played it right, because I see people being, very much in character as they're playing.
Well, that's what people want.
With the hair done, you're really selling the it was really
you shall not pass. No, you've got more Saruman vibes, I think, Tim, actually, to be honest.
Yeah, I do look like I'm getting ready to put a handprint on a Urukai helmet.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So we have Halloween questions submitted by Strange Familiars patrons, and some of them are specific to certain people, but we can all kind of riff on them and see what
for sure.
So Domenica S says, Tim, how often do you fake being interested in a person's story that is way out there and goofy? Or is that always going to be a secret? Because why would you tell us? Honestly, never. And it could be maybe I'm just gullible, but I'm there for it. When people tell me their stories, I get in the place where I believe them, I guess. I don't know. When I started, Soraya from Where Did the Road Go said, hey, I talked to him about that. Like, hey, what if somebody wants to like get one over on me or something? By the way, we're having a Halloween parade here in town. So if you hear some background noise, that's
Cool.
locals doing the Halloween parade.
The pubs are close to here, and everyone's getting lit up there too. So
Yeah, they're playing country music around here though. So I don't know if they remembered what time of year it is.
In any case, Soraya told me like, hey, it's better to believe one liar or believe 10 liars than disbelieve one person telling the truth. And I kind of took that to heart. I think there's wisdom in that.
Yeah.
So I really don't have to fake being interested. Sometimes people will go into intense detail, and I used to kind of get I like a little impatient with that. A lot of times with ghost stories, you'll find people will give a complete floor plan of the house, right?
Oh, okay, right.
So, like, well, this is my grandmother's house, and the laundry room's off to the left, and then the bedroom's down the hall. And I was like, why are they telling me all, like, it doesn't matter, just get to the story. But then I realized this is how people remember.
Right.
They remember this way, and I became very forgiving of that. And I realized, oh, okay, it's important for them to remember these details because they're putting themselves back in that place when they tell the story. So really, it's not an issue for me. Do you ever get any stories, you guys, that are just like, nah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would. But I think because our podcast is more geared towards having fun with things, so it's never not like you. It's not like stories that people are actually telling you on the spot. It's more like something we read. So there's a degree of separation there where you can kind of,
that's true.
You can like, we were watching one thing. I think you were showing us the clip of the guy who says he lives with Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And we just had so many questions. We were like, what time does Bigfoot have lunch? Like, does Bigfoot? So,
is he good about doing the chores and sharing the workload?
Yeah. And it was like, it sort of seemed like it was potentially a romantic relationship. And that opens, since we're furry familiars today, maybe that's a fitting name for it. But it's, there's just, I think things like that, again, because we're not connected to it. If we actually had a person on the show telling us how they lived with Bigfoot, then I would actually love that. But yeah, so there's a degree of separation that when you hear something mad, lets you giggle a bit.
Yeah, I think another big difference as well between our two podcasts is you're giving a platform to people to share their experiences, and it's very important that they're comfortable sharing their experiences. So being kind of impartial and sort of being open-minded is definitely probably the most important quality to have when you're doing that podcast, right? Whereas with us, it's kind of a side part is where we'll take people's stories and we'll read them and talk about them. Now, that being said, 95% of the stuff that we've had on the podcast, I believe it's just people that listen to us, they send them in, they have an experience. I would like to think that most people, and same with you as well, Tim, that like people aren't sitting behind a computer like typing out these long ass short stories that are totally fabricated. You know what I mean? Like you would think that people are taking the time because it's something that they believe happened to them. And so when it's shared with you, then you can only hope that it's authentic, I suppose.
Yeah. I think as well, it's usually the way that when you do read those stories, it's not so much that you disbelieve. You might go, well, maybe that was this or this was that, but you'd always leave the door open to, you can never know 100% one way or the other. But I think generally, I don't think we're super skeptical.
No, not either. Really. We're not skeptical people. We'd be in the wrong podcast.
I think I'm less skeptical than you are as well.
Yeah, for sure.
You guys changed a little bit over time too, though, haven't you?
Do you think so?
I think so. I think.
Is it the mustache?
I think in the beginning, you were much more likely to call things. What would you used to rate them? You used to rate them. You used to have
citing or shite.
I think you were much more likely to call them shite in the beginning. I think.
Yeah. We still do with a lot of those. Like I think with a lot of, actually only this week, I think I was probably saying that a lot of the UFO sort of podcasters and things, I think a lot of them are kind of disingenuous at times, and so we still do actually call out a lot of that stuff. I think it's probably from talking.
Me is the right
me
but
I think a lot of the time the more you talk to people that are into this sort of stuff, the more it does change your opinion as well. Do you know what I mean? Like we talked to Brother Richard a couple of weeks ago, and Eamon was off buying the robes the next day. You know?
Turns out they don't just let you in when you buy the robes, which is really disappointing. Like 8 years of study or something. Yeah, I think it's I found the more that we've looked into stuff and you read stories and blah blah blah. For me, at least, where I'm landing is there has to be something here, and I don't know what it is. I found myself in a weird loop the other day because I was talking to someone about, some idea I didn't believe in or something like that. And just this part near the back of my mind just went, Eamon, let's not be hypocritical here because you do believe in metaphysical Bigfoot. And so, and I'm bought into that. I believe there's some sort of, I don't know if one day maybe we'll explain it as a force of nature or something like that, or some sort of elements that we haven't uncovered yet. But I just think there's so many stories, it's almost impossible for them all to be untrue.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I want to mention something because the last time I was on, I think was the first time we did video. I watched a little bit of that and I noticed you guys are very still and I was swaying a lot. And I want to explain that. I have a standing desk. I do not sit down.
Yeah.
So I'm often shifting. So if people think I'm not fidgeting in my chair, I'm shifting my position because sitting is not good for me.
Yeah,
so I've chosen to stand.
Yeah.
So I have all standing drawing desk, standing computer desk. I stand most of the day. So that explains my swaying. Folks who are
I actually I got one of those in work. I kept having a trapped nerve in my back, and they got me like the stand. It's incredible how good it is. You feel so much better. I haven't had any problems from using it.
I was having back issues. I was having some other issues, and standing has fixed all of them. It's so much better for you. I heard a study and they said that people who like go to the gym 3 times a week were turning up with diabetes. And they were looking into it and they said, well, they sit at a desk all week long.
Yeah.
And they said if it's those big muscles in your legs and your buttocks, and if you can actually get them moving, you're like kind of pushing. That's what I guess they're the big muscles where you store all the sugar and stuff that can lead to diabetes. So it's really, really good to just not sit down all the time.
Yeah, because that's the thing. If you go to the gym sort of constantly, but your whole day is sitting down, all those little interactions where you'd walk here, walk there, do whatever, you're actually sort of probably burning less calories by working out intensely a few times a week rather than just walking a lot around the place, and what's that they say? Motion is lotion. Like you just keep the body moving and that's best for you.
Oh yeah. And with MS, it's so important for me just to like keep moving, keep walking, keep everything.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right. Adam V says, what are some of your current favorite books, fiction or nonfiction? We'll let the Monster Fuzz go first.
Me. The last book I read that I really enjoyed was Mariana Enrique, Things We Lost in the Fire. It's a book of short stories. It's all set in Buenos Aires, where she's from. And they're effectively horror stories or ghost stories, and it has this weird juxtaposition of sort of gang stuff, political corruption, broken people, failing relationships, and then there's like this spooky. And in one case, it's actually kind of a cryptid story. It doesn't tell you exactly, but they're really fascinating stories. Really dark, like some of the darkest stuff I've read in a while, but I guess just captures a sort of a setting perfectly. So that was the last book I read that I really, really enjoyed.
What have I read? Actually, I'm too adult to finish books. The last book I picked up and started was it was fiction. It was A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. It's George R.R. Martin novella. It's actually been made into a show. Irish guy playing the main character.
Ooh.
So that'll be good. But yeah, I started that. I got a little bit through it, and what I'm wanting to start is I have W.B. Yeats's folklore book downstairs, a really nice hardcover one, and I want to actually start perusing that sometime soon. So I'll probably give that a go in the next week or two. How about you
Alison,
guys?
I know you're reading something, Alison. What are you reading?
But I don't think they're like on brand books.
That's okay.
That's all
They're not
good.
like spooky books or anything that I've
Well,
read.
no, that's okay. It said current favorite books. It didn't say it said fiction or nonfiction. You're about the fellow from Felt, right?
Oh yeah, Lawrence from Felt. That was a fantastic book about his life, and it's sort of like a biographer who spends a year with this sort of obscure post-punk fellow from the 80s, and
Okay.
his sort of constant genius and failures and eccentricities.
Oh, that
And
sounds interesting.
yeah, he's a
Allison is someone I see always reading. Like honestly, she always has a book.
Yeah,
It's pretty inspiring.
Kira's like that as well. Like she's just reading is her thing. I find like I've got way too many things pulling me in way too many directions to actually get into the habit of reading regular. And I hate that. Like reading more is one of those things that I've always been saying, like, I need to get back into reading because I used to be an avid reader, but like it's just I find it so hard to get into
It's
that habit.
so easy not to.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like there's
like
There's so many
exercise.
the world
So many.
presents us with so many options. It's so
Mm.
easy not to read.
Do you read now, Tim? Do you read much?
Oh yeah. I try to
Yeah.
keep reading. Right now, I'm reading a book called The Black Alchemist, which was
Oh.
it's about psychic questing,
Oh.
and that was originally written in the 80s. I'm reading the updated version, which was kind of re-released, I think, in like 2015 or something.
Mhm.
But I also just got The Moon and Serpent Bumper Book of Magic by Alan Moore, who's
Oh, wow.
Oh, cool,
Alan Moore's
cool.
one of my favorites, and this is
Yeah.
his kind of survey of the occult that he's
Cool.
done. It's I haven't started it yet, but I've thumbed through it, and it looks pretty amazing. So
Is it
Alan
is it
Moore, come on, Strange Familiars.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, he'd fit right in. Um didn't he release some book years ago and it was like bigger than the Bible?
Yeah,
Is this another huge
this is big. It's not that big.
right?
What was that? What was that called, Alison?
Oh, I remember the review of it where someone said there was 150 pages of an infant choking on a throat lozenge. It was so big. Was it called
Wow.
Jerusalem?
I think
Yeah,
it
that's
was
what I
called
thought it
Jerusalem.
was,
Yeah,
Jerusalem. Yeah.
yeah.
It's yeah, I mean, so just his contribution to comic books.
Yeah.
Obviously
CV for Vendetta, wasn't he?
V for Vendetta's him. Yeah, yeah.
Watchmen.
Watchmen's him as well. Yeah, he's done
His run on Swamp Thing is world
yeah,
changing. I mean,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
one of my favorite runs in all of comics.
Haven't read it, I must check that out
yeah.
because I haven't read
Swamp
much
Thing.
Swamp. I have read zero Swamp Thing actually.
Like so Swamp Thing was ostensibly when it started, it was one of my favorite artists of all time, Bernie Wrightson, was responsible for the character.
Mhm.
And it was kind of like a monster of the week thing. It would be like,
Yeah.
Swamp Thing would fight a wolf man, Swamp Thing would fight,
Yeah.
a vampire, Swamp Thing, whatever. Alan Moore kind of breaks the character down and rebuilds it almost literally.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Yeah. And it becomes a true horror comic when
Mm.
Alan Moore takes over.
Cool.
And it's amazing. Like his run is simply amazing. I absolutely love it. Great
Cool.
art too. Great art.
Yeah. The artist. I used to have a poster of that, because Swamp Thing has like a romantic sort of a
Yes.
love interest in that. But
Mhm.
I remember I had a poster hung up in it when I lived in Cork years ago. Beautiful, beautiful poster. I loved. It's years back since I've read that, but I remember there being a big thing about Swamp Thing coming to the conclusion that he had lost everything that made him human, and there's all this stuff about consciousness and
Yeah.
yeah, it's especially when you think about the kind of period it was written.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and I thought the killing joke as well, the Batman one is
Oh, I've read that, I think.
the killing joke. I didn't even realize, and again, I suppose you can spoil something that's 40 odd years
Yeah.
old. But that part at the end where him and Batman laugh together, and I didn't cop that. One way of interpreting it is that Batman finally kills him, and that's why it's called the killing joke. He strangles
Mhm.
him. And I was like, oh wow.
Oh yeah.
When you read, yeah, at
I
that
read
time,
that show when I was 16.
yeah, exactly. I would have been the
Yeah,
same. I
so
was
young.
young enough, and I was, not paying enough attention. But when you go back and read them, the stuff he's done is brilliant. And the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen was so much fun as a book as
the,
well.
The
And
movies.
oh no,
They did it so dirty. It's such a cool series that
Yeah.
the movies just do not represent well.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was working in a comic shop during the time Watchmen came out and V for
Oh,
Vendetta, all that stuff. It was an amazing time. It was an
Yeah.
amazing time to be into comics.
Were you been working in the comic book shop around the time The Crow would have come out? That's 80s,
Yeah,
is
yeah,
it?
it would have been coming out
Was
around
was that
time.
like
Yeah.
pretty? Because I know that was it started life at least as an independent comic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying it because I recently saw like of the movie's one of my favorites, and I love the James O'Barr comic. And I recently saw the remake And I was just, I've never been so disappointed with the movie in my life. It was, oh, yeah.
What comic book shop did you work in, Tim? What's the name of it?
It was a shop in Reisterstown, Maryland called Cards, Comics, and Collectibles.
No, the reason I ask is because a friend of mine, he's passed now. He's actually American, but he wouldn't have been far from you actually. I think he was in I want to say Westchester maybe actually.
Okay.
And
Oh,
he had a couple of comic book shops called the Comic Book Caper was the name of it, and it had the logo was actually some of your listeners might know of the place. Giovanni was the name of the owner. Lovely guy, one of the nicest dudes ever. But yeah, he actually gifted me. I have two of them still, but he gifted me two Stan Lee signed things, and one of the things is a T-shirt of his business, and it has like John Romita's signature, Todd McFarlane's, all this cool stuff, and it's one of my keepsakes. I'll always have it. You know, I treasure it. But yeah, I just thought maybe there could have been a chance there that he's crossed paths. You know.
No, I did. I believe the store still exists.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
During college, I was canned. So we parted ways, but I wish the fellow well. Hope he's doing well.
Is it hard to get canned from a comic book shop?
what did you do? Did you just not show up? Was it just not showing up?
No, I was
a little more involved than that.
Statute
Not
of
incriminating
limitations,
yourself.
No, I mean, look, it had to do with me being stubborn, and you know, people were complaining. So I was wearing a Samhain shirt appropriate to the season, for the band, which had some blood on it. You know, in the graphic, not actual blood. And someone complained about it.
Lads.
And the owner of the shop said, "Hey, you know, you shouldn't wear that kind of stuff." And I went and pointed to the rack. Like at the time, Dead World was on the rack.
Yeah.
There was a comic called Faust, which was extremely violent and bloody. And you know, all these horror comics, I started pointing out, like, look, this cover is way worse than all it was. Is a T-shirt that showed some guys that were covered in blood. Right? They just had blood on them. The cover of Initium. And I was like, look, these are, and he did not appreciate that. So I showed up the next day in a shirt and tie, and did not appreciate that either.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way of handling it.
Yeah, but like
And-
Punisher and stuff is all graphic as well.
Oh yeah, it was like that was the beginning of the end. I think that was the beginning of the wedge between us, and things only got worse from there.
That's funny though.
Is that when you went on to the lucrative world of cassette tapes, or was that when you worked for the specialty soap company?
I would have worked for Crabtree and Evelyn for a Christmas season, and then I did go on to Record and Tape Traders, where I worked in the cassette business. Yes,
Nice.
Dating
Working
me,
in
Alison.
the cassette business in the 90s, the early 90s, was it? That must have been fairly bleak. You were losing down the CDs.
We had vinyl and CDs as well.
Oh, cool.
But
Okay,
they were called Record and Tape Traders. That was the
nice. Cool.
you could bring in your used stuff and trade it. But Allison loves to date me, not actually go on dates with me. She just likes to let everyone know how old I am. Andrew S. says, if cryptids, etc., are nature spirits, I would have thought reports should be ramping up, ? After all, nature must be pissed with what humans are doing to the natural world. Maybe. I mean, you know, I don't know that they're not ramping up. We certainly... Do we get more reports now because we have podcasts like ours that are documenting these reports? Or are there more encounters happening? You know, that's the big question.
Or do they have a let it burn philosophy?
They might. There's also, it was I think you might have said actually in a recent episode, Eamon, where like, what if like everything that humans do is also natural? Do you know what I mean? Like, is
Sure.
is like,
Well, it is,
because there's an
like,
assumption that like
we
we're
separate
inserting
ourselves from nature, but we are effectively part of the same, you know, organism, if you like. It doesn't, like, obviously there is, you can separate us from, you know, buildings from trees, but we are part of the same living thing on the planet that
unless we came down from Xenu's spaceship, you know.
Well, that is true. We could have come from Mars and in a comet, and we should have never been here, which would make a lot of sense when you look around. You're like, yeah, we should have never been here.
We ruined everything.
I do think as well, people are probably spending a lot less time kind of walking around in nature. Like the city is so busy, bustling,
Mm.
that like it's probably very difficult to actually get that solitude and quiet time to actually experience something that might be elemental. And
Mm.
like even when you think about it, like if like I know Rob, you go on hikes and stuff, but it's still just a 4 or 5 hour window,
Mhm.
and it's not like, you know, if you were constantly steeped in that, maybe if we had we couldn't have this technology and spend that level of time in nature. So I wonder if there was some way of combining those, potentially everybody would be seeing something weird every other day.
Oh yeah. If you're out camping, even like,
Mhm.
I don't know when the last time you guys were out spent the night out in the woods, Tim and Alison, but like I went during the summer. I hadn't camped in like literally years, for shame, really. But when I was out, I was like, oh yeah, like give me a week out here, like, and I'm gonna have a bunch of weird stuff going on. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Mhm.
Even the first night I was there, it wasn't a weird occurrence, but it was quite cool. It was like we seen like a little mink or a ferret
Ah,
out
yeah,
and
yeah.
running around in the woods, which you wouldn't really
It's
see
such. Remember when we
otherwise.
went on the hike that time, and a deer
Yeah,
just
yeah,
sort of jumped in front of us up this huge sort of hill, like
yeah.
wooded hill. It was very steep as well. So the deer jumped up and past us, and it was such a majestic moment because we don't see things
No.
like that. And then as we walked on at the corner, there was a frog in amongst these kind of vegetation, and we were, you know, just two guys who live in the town.
Mhm.
We're like, oh, look, is this so cool? Like,
Yeah.
you know, but I guess, yeah, to be around it all the time, all the other things that are maybe more difficult to see in a metaphysical sense would,
Yeah.
Fair.
yeah.
No, I think yeah. I think I don't know. I when I was younger, I was very much of the like we're ruining the planet, man, and nature's mad and stuff. And I think it probably is to a degree anyway. But I think there is a lot of indications. You could say right now as well that like maybe you could argue, could you say that if everything that's said about global warming is to be believed, could you say that, yeah, well, that's maybe what's going on, and eventually it will cause humans to be wiped out, and then the planet will keep on going as it always did? Do you know what I mean? Is that maybe part of
Yeah,
what's
I mean,
happening?
what did George Carlin say? He said, it's not
Mhm.
the planet's going to be fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's humans that are.
Nature, what
yeah.
was it he said? Maybe nature wants plastic.
Yeah.
That was his punchline.
Yeah.
So Tim with 3 M's
Oh,
asks, if the veil is thin at Halloween, do the number of Bigfoot and alien reports spike then as well?
that's a question for you anyway, Tim, because you get all the kind of field stuff.
Yeah, I don't know that it does necessarily. Like, I would love to say it does.
Mm.
And I would also love to say, like, in Where the Footprints End, I have a chapter on Christmas wild men as regards Bigfoot. And I literally call it Time of the Wild Men because there are so many of these, wild men all over the world that sort of are associated with Christmas. And I'd love to say the number of reports go up then as well. But really, it's hard to say.
Mm.
It's the reporting that people were using to determine this stuff is many years old. I think Dr. Paul Johnson's the one who put it together. He has a book called Chasing the Elusive Pennsylvania Bigfoot, I believe. And in there he talks about, 51% of sightings are at night, 49% are
Mm.
during the day. And he breaks it down all like that. I don't think that anybody's done that
Mm.
recently, something like
Mm.
that recently. I don't know if it would change if they did. There are definitely months that sightings are more common, but they tend to be months where people are in the woods.
Yeah.
People in the
Yeah,
woods in warm months, they see stuff
true.
during that time.
Yeah.
Daytime sightings are more, common than people think. People generally say, "Oh, this, Bigfoot's a nocturnal animal," but there are plenty of daytime sightings.
Yeah.
Why? 'Cause most people aren't out at night. If they're going to see
Mm.
something, they're
There
they're
would
out
be,
there.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
the nighttime seems to be more like the stone throwing and things like that. If you're at a property close to the woods, you get a
mhm.
lot of, but they're not actual visual reports. It's like something too big is on the roof, is throwing stones at the
Yeah,
wall, is upsetting my animals or whatever.
Mm.
yeah. So my answer is I don't know. Someone should
Mm.
do a study of that though, and
Mhm.
we could see
Mhm.
based on new information. Because I
Yeah.
think the stuff that Dr. Johnson was using was like reports up to the 80s or something. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
we have a lot more information now.
Mhm.
What are your go-to movies to get into the Halloween spirit? Corey S. asks.
I tell you what, I'll say something a bit different because I just started it. Eamon has been harping on about me to try and watch it, and I just started it, and it is From. Have you guys watched From? Alison
Yeah.
and Tim. It's just it's kind of new. Is it 2 years old?
2, 3 years old. Yeah, it's like Lost, but just really, really scary,
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's like
unsettling. It's like basically at night, people come out of the forest in a town that's on you. Once you're in it, you can't get out of
you
it,
guys would like it, I
and
think.
they try to gain access to your house, and if they do, you're in some
And
serious trouble.
they use these
Mhm.
talismans that are like kind of carved with symbols and they
Yeah,
keep them on their door, and that's how they keep the sort of vampiric weird monstery creatures out. And yeah, it's really weird. It's one of them ones where you don't know why they're there, what's going on, and it's very
yeah.
interesting. And it's got a good mix of like kind of interesting, kind of spooky, and
Kind of character driven, kind of. It's yeah, it's like a sort of a good zombie show where the threat becomes secondary to
yeah.
actually what they're trying to, just the people. Not that they're all evil or anything, but just even trying to get enough food, trying to do
Right.
this, trying to do that. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a really, yeah, it's a really interesting show.
When you say we would both like it, you're Allison,
Oh.
pulled the greatest bit of false advertising in the history of mankind on me. When I started dating her, she looked like Morticia Adams.
Uh,
And come to find out, once we start dating, this woman doesn't like horror movies at all.
Do you know this might be an exception because my wife,
yeah,
similar
yeah,
thing, we used to
Paula's
watch
not
those.
into that
Yeah,
stuff.
we used
Yeah.
to watch horror movies together all the time when we were dating, and then we were living together, and she was like, "No, we're watching 50 First Dates now and rom-coms," and I was like, "Oh Lord." But she loves From, and again, I think it's that thing. It's a good story, keeps you interested. It's pretty gory, but not too gory. It's
Yeah.
just right in that line, just nice.
There's a movie I don't talk about a lot. I think I probably talked about it before, but it's a really cool folk horror movie from the, I want to say, early 80s. One of the rare American folk horror movies. It's called Eyes of Fire.
Oh.
Oh, never
And
heard of it.
the effects are goofy,
Mm.
very 80s, but the story is really cool. And it has a hairy witch in it.
Oh.
One could say this witch was very Sasquatch-like
Okay.
and acts very much like a Bigfoot and
Mm.
has glowing eyes of fire. And it's got all these like kind of weird Bigfoot associations, and yet they're calling this thing a witch. It's a very where the footprints end kind of movie.
Uh,
But so I absolutely love it, and it's got the weird effect. Kind of reminds me Bakshi's Lord of the Rings, um,
mm.
the way the orcs looked.
Yeah, that's rotoscoping, right? That's what they call
Yeah,
that. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. No, it's not animated, but this
yeah.
whenever they show the hairy witch, it often has that kind of feel of like
Okay.
Ah, right.
the orcs did in the Bakshi Lord of the Rings. This is like really eerie, kind of weird, kind of feel to it.
Yeah, the orcs look really weird in Lord of the Rings. It was good, like in a really weird, sort of
Yeah,
spooky
Yeah.
way.
That way they used to animate back then, that 80s kind of heavy metal style.
hmm
It totally gone now, but it's really fun to look back sometimes, and just the movement of it is so,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
it looks so cool. Somebody
yeah.
did a rotoscope movie recently. I
Really?
watched
Yeah.
it.
Really?
It wasn't bad. It was kind of the nod to heavy metal and fire and ice and
Oh,
Yeah.
those kind of things. I'm trying to remember what it was called, but it was over the past like 3 years, and it was cool. It was super
cool.
cool.
Yeah, that's class.
Alison, you don't watch
Yes.
spooky stuff, but do you have any
No.
Halloween recommendations though?
I
Is there
don't know.
anything like with the flavor of Halloween maybe that isn't necessarily spooky?
I mean, I would probably steal maybe a Tim's favorite movie because I think it has sort of a flavor of Halloween. It has that sort of psychological element, and that's Night of the Hunter. He talks about that a lot, and I think that's a really good one. It's
Yeah,
Robert
she will.
Mitchum, right?
She yeah yeah she will watch that.
Yeah, I
Um,
would watch that, and like I think it's because like the first horror movie I ever saw traumatized me so much that like the thought of
Mm.
I can't even see the Amityville house. It was the
Yeah,
Amityville horror,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I just like
No, you're right. It can leave an
I-
impression on you. It's just true. Like I have a friend and she played Resident Evil 2 as a kid and she just cannot go anywhere near that franchise or anything to do with it.
Yeah.
She's just like, I don't want to see it. I don't
Yeah.
want to hear about it. No, I'm not playing it, you know?
It is.
I don't
Yeah.
even see the windows that are that shape, like
Yeah.
from the Amityville house.
What
It's,
about like Something Wicked This Way Comes, Allison? Like,
Oh, I do like
Mm.
that. Yeah, because I do love Ray Bradbury. He's sort
Bradbury,
of
yeah.
like the outlier to my normal reading tastes because I think he's just um his take on the human condition mixed with the supernatural is I think sort of like the way that our two interests kind of collide. So I
yeah.
love it. A lot of Ray
lovely.
Bradbury.
He's got a lovely style of writing.
oh yeah,
I read some of his short stories, and they really capture because I guess it's the same era, but some of them, at least some of the more sci-fi oriented ones, they really get that Twilight Zone feeling in a book,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
But yeah, Something Wicked This Way Comes. I read that years ago, or maybe I read most of it. I didn't actually realize there was a movie of it, or maybe I
Yeah.
realized, but I haven't seen it. It's good, yeah.
oh yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow,
I think it
wow.
might even be a Disney movie, but it's
Oh.
really kind of dark
Yeah.
and it's really cool. It's a cool
Awesome.
movie.
Yeah, I must check that out.
Cool.
James M has a question for me.
Oh,
Have you experienced the presence of Sophia in your encounters? So this is like this sort of archetype of wisdom or
okay.
the feminine divine.
Right.
Um, I I maybe you know that
Mm.
I haven't thought that much about it. I would say that um the other is I've never gotten a particularly male or female feeling from
Uh,
it. So I think it's
Mm.
probably a good mix of both. And one could say certain elements are more feminine, maybe, and more wise,
Mm.
things that have the synchronicities and so forth that have guided me into good directions and into good things, maybe one might
Mm.
assign to that.
Mhm.
But I haven't really thought about, assigning that or feeling that particular presence.
Mhm.
At this point, it's so hard for me to separate one thing from another.
Mhm.
The UFO is Bigfoot is
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
I can't draw lines anymore.
Yeah.
What about you guys when you're sitting around in a Spider-Man costume? What are you thinking?
What am I thinking when I'm sitting around the costume? I don't know. I want to do more. I'd probably, if I could just live my day today in costumes, I actually quite enjoy it, actually. Do you know that?
Just in the
Just being an
costume.
idiot, yeah.
It's very hot.
It is
Very
a bit
hot.
too
I
hot,
don't
though.
like that about the
No,
costume.
There's
bit
no
too
natural fabrics in costumes.
That's true.
Mm.
If you stand next to a fire too long, now you're in trouble.
Yeah, that is
You're
true.
gonna go.
Well, I am kind of looking forward. My niece is coming up to the house for Halloween to get some candy and whatever. But I'm looking forward to putting the blank costume back on with the green face paint or sorry, the Super Mario Bowser
Yeah.
costume, the Kappa costume or what have you. But yeah, I think I don't know. There's that was your idea, the costumes. That wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love all that silliness.
Yeah,
Like, well, like the way I look at it is it's something that we've only recently started doing video on YouTube, but like every year it was kind of a treat for patrons that, well, if you want to call it a treat, I don't think it's a treat, but we would do a video version of the Halloween podcast, and for every video version we dress up. And so it was just an incentive, I suppose, to do it. But yeah, no, I love Halloween and I don't have kids yet, so I have to act like a big child. So that's kind of
So
scratching my
I
itch.
decorated the house today with all the Halloween stuff, and they're like, "That dude has no kids. What's wrong? What's going on?" Like, so I was like, "No, I have a wife. Everything's fine. So don't worry."
So yeah, let's go crack. Yeah, bit of fun.
I have kids and it hadn't stopped me from being childish. So.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. It's good to hear.
Yeah.
This one's from Mary and it's for Allison. So does Allison still see herself as a skeptic in regard to the other and whatnot? Or has she shifted her perspective a bit?
It's all about the whatnot. I think I just realized that probably we're all seeing something similar, but the lens is colored a little differently. Like I think in the same way some people will see a glass and it's half full, some will see half empty. I think that's probably the approach to the other that, I'll probably always just see something very I don't know, non-exciting, not mystical, not fun, probably. Whereas we could go on a walk and it could be an amazing journey, and I will just end up with mosquitoes. So I don't know.
You've attributed that in the past to me being a Virgo. You said that everything is always new to you. Me, meaning me.
Yeah, I think that there's something about that, that it's the balance between me keeping you from getting lost by following a fairy into the woods, and you allow me to concede that there might be some magic in the world. So I think that's a good balance there. But
That's a really good balance. Yeah.
so I don't know if I've changed my opinion per se, but I absolutely know that, like kind of what we were talking about the first question, like, are there any, like, have there ever been any people who are absolute bullshitters? I don't even get that impression. Like, I listen to a lot of the interviews because we don't really have like a dedicated room. So like when Tim's recording, if I'm downstairs, I'll hear it. And very, very, very few times have I thought like this person is totally lying. Like I can probably count it maybe on one hand. Every other time I think, like, while I might not see it that way, the person's absolutely being sincere. So I feel like that's like whatever they believe, whatever it is they saw, and they believe it in that context. So I don't really think most people are looking to be. I mean, you could be a bullshitter in so many other ways in the modern world. Like, you don't really have to go to a podcast.
Yeah, it's almost not worth telling a lie.
Yeah,
Like you would
exactly.
have, to your point, I think it's like it's their experience, whether it's been misconstrued in some way, maybe is another thing, but it's certainly, I think 99.9% of the time, they're being truthful in what they're saying.
Well, in your Brother Richard interview, I was delighted that both you and Brother Richard kept referring to the white Bigfoot, black Bigfoot story, Strange Familiars. And the third person in that story saw nothing,
Yeah, okay, right.
Alison might be that third person.
Yeah.
He saw nothing, but he still ran.
That would be me. I'd run. Yeah, just in case.
Eric G, as a follow-up, Alison, which encounter or story do you find to be the most compelling and hard to dismiss, and why?
Oh, of like people that we've known, or like people that have been on the show?
You can choose people on the show. You can choose, whatever.
I do think that there is a certain credibility in sort of those mass sightings. When two people are seeing something completely strange at the same time, that and especially people who are not potentially courting it, like when you get guests on that have no interest in the paranormal normally, that I find really compelling, where there are people that are like, I don't even want to tell anybody this happened. Like that those are the most compelling stories for me.
Well, Delaney has a question, and Rob, we got to figure out a way to cyberbully her together.
Yeah, we did.
Or Delaney.
Yeah, no. Tim did the red wedding on her. She was shit talking me in the Strange Familiars Discord, and she was like, "What are you going to do, Tim, to prevent Rob bullying me?" And Tim was like, "I'm going to help him." I was like, "Yeah." We're joking. We love Delaney, of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
She says both of your podcasts explore subjects related to the paranormal, supernatural, and highly strange, but you take noticeably different approaches to the content at hand. In your opinion, what does the other show have to offer the field at large?
Oh my goodness.
So this is a confession that probably people aren't going to want to hear. I don't listen to a lot of paranormal podcasts anymore, mainly because I don't have the time. But one I do listen to is Monster Fuzz. And the reason why is you're a great conversationalist, and you don't take it super seriously. I mean, you take the topics seriously, but there's room for laughter. There's room for a bit of lightheartedness, which I think is missing in so much of this and needed in so much of this. I think and I might be guilty of this myself. We get ultra serious, and it can be a heavy thing after a while, and you need that lightness. So often I'll go to comedy. Like, you'll hear me talk about Always Sunny all the time, how much I love that. I'll go to comedies to sort of break away from this stuff. But Monster Fuzz is a way for me to like stay in the paranormal, but also have a little bit of lightness and, the digressions I love you guys do. So, that's.
Thanks very much.
Well, I think for what I found about way before we did a podcast was, I think Strange Familiars taps into a certain tone of let's just call them like supernatural, paranormal podcasts or whatever, but you get into a certain tone that isn't always very easy to find, and it's an open, curious, sort of, it's just full of possibilities, and it's not kind of telling you this is it and that's that, and that's what, because I just, that even that idea of the other, and the idea of, you know, almost like the jinn type thing, where they believe, you know, it's like, to your point, it's UFOs, it's Bigfoot, it's all the same thing, or it's all emanating from the same thing. I think it can be really hard to find good podcasts that explore that as in depthly as yours do. And even, you know, the other stuff you put out, the books and everything, like there's just so much there. And it's almost as if, like, you know, we talked about Brother Richard, is he fits into that so seamlessly. And it, again, I think it's that open curiosity, and it's yeah, it's just it sort of leaves you with information, but also your mind is kind of, there's a strange heady feeling from just listening to the kind of stuff that you guys cover. I think it's excellently done.
Whenever I get to talk to Brother Richard, I end up just shaking my head because I'm like, how lucky, how lucky am I to have this guy as a regular, as someone I can call a friend at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. Like he's like, he has been a boon for Strange Familiars, and I'm so happy he reached out to us. And sometimes, like I said, I got to pinch myself. It's like, wow, this guy, because well, it's like when he was on your show recently.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Did you tell him the questions you were going to be asking? Yeah, that's the thing. You don't have to.
The first time we did, second time, no, not at all. Yeah. I literally just said we might talk about this. So we just went off.
Well, you don't even know where you're going to end up, because he's so engaging, and he can talk for so long about something, that at the end of one of our stories, he was talking about how, oh yeah, I just happened to know this guy who had a Michele and Mbembe carving. And I was like, how did we? And he was like, sorry. It was funny because after the podcast, he went, sorry guys, I might have gone into a bit of a mad one on the Michele and Mbembe stuff there. And I was like, that's Rob's favorite thing. Like, he loves Michele and Mbembe.
I think, look, I think that if you were to compare and contrast podcasts, I think there's space for all of them. Like, there's space for, I think what yours does is it's just a really good open platform, and a forum for people to share their experiences. And as I said earlier, you know, it's important that people feel comfortable doing that. And I think when people feel comfortable, they'll share that tone, they'll share whatever way they experience it. For example, we get a lot of stuff that's, some people send us in stories that are a little bit more comedic, like, even if it is an experience, sometimes it does have a comedic nature, even the way it's told or something. And we sometimes maybe we are too lighthearted with certain things, but I would say, like, look, it's we're just trying to be us, and I think that's it really. And you're going to throw that stuff in, but I think we wouldn't have a space to exist in if it wasn't for podcasts like yours, because I think that's where it starts. I think it needs it starts by people sharing experiences, and that's obviously what expands the field. So I think that's what's important about it. So yeah.
Well, thank you guys. That's very, very flattering.
Yeah, likewise, much appreciated, man. Alison, what do you think about all this nonsense that we're saying to each other?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you can. Tim actually cuts a fair amount out of what I say, because sometimes I'm a little too silly. So I really do appreciate the humor of your podcast, and that is because you really can't. It's hard to maintain a super serious tone when you're talking about completely kind of batshit crazy things. And I mean batshit crazy in the most loving way and the most non-judgmental way. But there are a lot of things that Tim covers, I think, that even he would admit have an element of batshit craziness to them. So plus, I love that you can swear in your podcast. I'm going to use that.
I think you can say anything.
Do you want to, Alison? Do you want to come on sometime and just let loose?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, we'll do that. We'll arrange Alison to be on Monsterful sometime soon. That'll be a good fun.
I only have to give I get the right of cancellation on anything kind of talk about me.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah, just play it so you can at least edit. Well, it's probably a good thing. I probably need an editor in just my general life, you know. as I have conversations with people, I should probably just have somebody like, let's just clip that part out.
Well, so do I, but unfortunately, I'm the one that edits the podcast, so it doesn't get done. So.
I will say one thing that this podcast has done to me, and it's sort of wildly inappropriate is that I work in sort of a, you know, middle management kind of a role or whatever, and I find sometimes I casually bring stuff that we'd be talking about. So I'd be in a meeting and blah blah, and someone was talking about, yeah, it seems to be, you know, there's very aggressive nature in customers and stuff now, and I just kind of went, well, it's kind of understandable, I guess. You know, there's 2 wars going on, there's COVID's just happened, and then without thinking, I went, and you know, the US Congress are looking into UAP at the minute. So, I mean, who knows if the disclosure is going to. And then I just kind of stopped and everyone was looking at me. I was like, I was just watching the news recently. Sorry.
Do they know?
Yeah.
That's a question I have for both of you. Do sort of your civilian lives, do people know what goes on?
Our friends know.
Yeah.
But
but like the people you work with, do they know?
No.
I tell most people, like, I'm fairly open about it because I don't really, like, honestly, for better or worse, I don't really give a monkeys now what people think. I really, and I never did, to be fair. I'm a very much a like it or lump it kind of person. So,
Yeah.
and I kind of have to be as well. But
I don't so much care what people think. I just feel that I might not be the best representative for what they're trying to achieve with their strategy. If they find out that I'm mouthing off about metaphysical Bigfoot the whole time.
Metaphysical Bigfoot expert.
It's like, you have a metaphysical job now, Eamon. Best of luck.
Jake has a question for everyone. What is your ultimate Halloween night concert limited to a 4-band bill? Allison, go.
Oh no, don't make me go first. So I guess, are we supposed to do like bands in their prime with a spooky kind of like?
I think it's up to you. It's it's your ultimate Halloween night concert. You get to decide.
I feel like it should be thematic. You can't just be like, I want to go see Todd Rundgren on Halloween night.
Who Allison saw recently.
Oh, it was horrible. Oh, it was the worst. It was so bad.
She did not, in fact, want to work. She just wanted to bang on that drum all day.
That's true. I would probably go for like kind of spooky bands in their prime, probably. Like, you know, sort of classic. I've seen The Damned before. I think The Damned are probably a good one for that, because they sort of, there's a lot of those bands that really, at this point, we can only kind of listen to seriously at Halloween. Like Tim and I always say, like, the Misfits really are not for people our age, but they're, you know, once a year, they're just kind of like a Halloween band. Like maybe the Misfits in their prime, doing like some classic stuff like that. I don't have the, I mean, I feel like I'm failing on this one.
Reach back into your goth days, Allison. Come on.
Okay, I'd probably like to see like first generation Christian Death with Roz Williams singing.
There you go.
Yeah, I'd like to see like maybe the Sisters of Mercy in their prime, kind of first singles era. Yeah, these would be just kind of like classic goth and death rock stuff from the 80s would probably be my vote.
All right, fellers.
I can go really quick because I think I have mine fairly handy. I think I would go with like Black Sabbath, obviously.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. I would go with Led Zeppelin. They have a lot of mysticism and darkness in their music as well. I would go with The Cure, probably, just because there's we're talking about old school gothy kind of stuff. And then I would go with do you know who we're a good crack actually? Maybe not the spookiest, but The Cult.
Oh yeah, or like death cult stuff, like
early cult is I was listening to that actually today. I love the early cult. Yeah. Before they went hair metal, I like them a lot.
I like the bit of their kind of cheesy, more pompousy stuff as well. Now, to be fair, but I don't
mind the Electric album. After that, they get a little. They get a little Sunset Strip. You know?
Yeah. Girls. Now, what about you, Emma?
I think the headliners would have to be. If I could have seen Alison Chains with Lane singing. You know, I don't even know if I liked him by the time he was dead, but that's neither here nor there. But there's a band called Crosses that have a spooky little atmosphere to them. It's kind of like Deftones with a lot more synth, Depeche Mode vibes. I think you're right as well. The Cure, would have to be up there. Yeah, and then probably Black Sabbath.
Dead Kennedys, do they have a bit of spooky?
They have that Halloween song. They have a Halloween song.
They do, don't they?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Is there anyone else out there? You know, Michael Jackson,
Ghost.
A bit of Thriller up there to scare everyone in many ways.
Ghost have they're sort of modern day spooky metal, I guess, which is
Yeah, yeah. There's a good couple.
I'm gonna get obscure and weird, of course.
Go for
Um,
it.
Williamson, but as a storyteller. So
Oh,
he does these storytelling gigs where he'll tell these stories from folklore, and some of them are quite appropriate for the
cool.
season. And he's a fantastic storyteller. He works in music and like kind of plays the harp while he tells the story.
Mhm.
He has a 2 CD set called Four Gruagach Tales. You know, the
All right.
Gruagach is the
Yeah,
wild man,
yeah.
kind of a magician wild man.
Mhm.
And something like that would be fantastic for a Halloween gig. There's a band I love called Coil,
Okay.
experimental band, and they're dead. But hey, since it's
Mm.
our ultimate Halloween night concert, why not?
Yeah, they'll come
Uh,
back.
so they're definitely on the spooky side. They'd be great atmosphere. Um, Let me think. Oh, Nico. I would love
Oh
to,
yeah,
since
Oh
I'm
yeah, Nico.
resurrecting people, let's have
yeah.
Nico with like a harmonium sort of do like Desert Shore. Maybe she could play all of Desert Shore or something. And I have to go. My all-time favorite band is a not the metal band,
Hmm.
EOB, but the folk band Cobb from the
Cobb.
1970s. And if I'm putting together any bill at any time, they're going to be in it. But they do have a Halloween song called Bones.
Oh,
So that, they would fit with that. But they have a sort of a darker folk vibe anyway. So I think they would generally fit. So very eclectic night of music, but I'd be in heaven.
yeah, yeah.
I
That'd
think
be
we
cool.
could see all of these bands and it would be good.
One big festival, Halloween festival with all them
It would
bands would be
probably
quite cool.
cost $25,000.
It would do,
Yeah.
yeah.
Could afford it, and the parking would be extra.
Yeah, the prices of pints and kebabs would be through the roof.
Oh my
You know what
goodness.
I mean? €15 for a pint.
it'd be
$15.
quite scary.
Yeah.
Quite scary.
I started going to concerts again recently. I didn't stop because of COVID. I stopped just because
Yeah,
I
happened to
just
me too. Fell out of
stopped
interest.
going.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I started going again recently, and I'm shocked because like concerts that would have been, in the 90s, $5 are now like 15, 20, $30, like just little local bands.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what is happening? Like it used to be like people would give you guff if you charged more than $5 for a show
Yeah.
in the 90s.
It's
And now
insurance, man, and things like that
Yeah.
for the venues. A lot of the time, it's the hidden costs. We even ran into that when we were doing our live show. Like the actual operational costs of these venues nowadays, what they're actually charging, what they want you to pay them up front before you even book it, is in a lot of cases kind of crazy. Especially if they serve drink, that's when it gets fairly crazy.
Yeah.
It's hard to find. We actually, funnily enough, it's not a music based, but I went to a really cool little theater production in a venue called Smock Alley in Dublin, which is like I think it's an old monastery or something, but it's kind of ruinous. So inside they've built the stage around kind of old castle walls and stuff. And it was an anthology of sort of horror-based plays, which was really cool. So 4 little plays, some of them quite comedic, which was like a mad scientist talking to HR, which was quite, quite good. But some really good stuff, some changeling stuff as well in there. But that was about €15, I think, which is
Yeah,
probably
they're-
the cheapest venue you're gonna get.
Well, their rates are
nowadays.
quite good. I actually do
Yeah.
have them earmarked for our next live show. So that is, I think actually I probably sent that to Tim before Smack Alley, so he's probably familiar.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Mhm.
So there's one last question. Came in last moment, so nobody knows about this one.
Oh, surprise.
Allison often accuses me of knowing the questions beforehand and not letting her see. This came in last minute. I gave her all the other questions.
Right, good.
Three Laurel Leaves is the username. Asks, if you could have your perfect Halloween night, what would you do and where would you be? Cozy at home, watching a scary movie marathon, reading a book and enjoying a beverage by the fire in a creaky haunted house, adventuring in the woods, a huge costume party. If you could do anything, what would your ultimate Halloween night be?
Who's taking that first?
Go ahead. I don't care. It's anybody else. I'll go last.
Alison, do you have any ideas?
Well, this is going to be uncharacteristic because it's going to be nice to Tim, but because that is our anniversary, I would just like to repeat that day again. It's been quite a few years, but I'd like to do that again.
Okay. You're not going to believe this, and no one else is going to believe this. I was going to go last because I was going to say that.
Seriously?
I really was.
That's
I really
nice.
was. So, but I'll go ahead, guys, and then I'll maybe add to something.
It'll be Marvin Gaye getting played in that house now tonight. No, there'll be any spooky music. It'll be essential.
And we've been married quite a few years.
um, I think for me now, there was actually a time, we were talking about fancy dress and stuff. We're from a small town. It's like the population is about 20,000. It used to always annoy me that on Halloween night there was never any venues or anything that would throw a good fancy dress kind of party, a good session where everyone could kind of look forward to somewhere to dress up. Because every year here, actually, there's never really a concrete, like, this is a place you can go to have a Halloween party. Like, there is nowhere like that. And a lot of the places that you would think would do it are like completely like, oh, maybe last minute kind of thing it gets
Yeah.
announced. So like I've always wanted to throw a big ass Halloween party with fancy dress and like proper prizes. I actually did. I think I probably said it to you. Like that would have been one of the ideas for our live shows, was to have it on Halloween
Yeah, makes
and to
sense.
have like a fancy dress audience participation kind of element to it. And that may happen in the future, perhaps, who knows? But yeah, that would be mine. Like just a cool ass Halloween party, everyone's dressed up, having fun, being silly.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to this year because it's the first time we have our place together, me and Paola, and my niece. One is like 6 in January, and the other is just over 1. So I don't think she's too invested in Halloween. But
Mm.
I'm kind of looking forward just to seeing them because I haven't been around like a kid who's really enjoying it. And it's funny you guys talked about getting married that day. My sister got married around the time of Halloween, and she made it.
Mm.
So her husband is quite into ghoulish things as well. So they made sure that it's a place called Wilton Castle, and on their little pamphlet to say thanks for coming, they had a collection of ghost stories. And their wedding picture is the two of them and their daughter. That the other little one wasn't around at the time. And there's like, it's in the dark, and there's a pumpkin, and they all have very serious faces, and it looks quite haunting. So it's funny. It kind of links in with what you guys are talking about.
So we got married. We weren't originally going to get married on Halloween. We said that's too on the nose, right? Like,
Yeah.
like, we shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But the woman who married us was only available that night.
Ah.
So we made a last minute decision, and we eloped in Hex Hollow, which people hear us talk about
wow.
quite frequently on the show.
Okay.
Lots of spookiness there. So yeah, that's what we did. I suppose I would maybe only add to repeating that night that I would hope that Alison wouldn't get sick as she did on
Yeah,
our
did.
actual wedding night.
Nice. That's an Irish way of doing things. Yes.
I was like, I don't feel good.
And
Was it
maybe
alcohol or no?
no, just
No, I just got
really-
sick. I got a
Oh.
cold. I was just like, oh, my
no.
throat hurts. Like, of course.
Yeah.
and maybe add like a nice walk somewhere like that we both like. Either maybe Gettysburg or
Yeah.
somewhere like, I know you don't like doing the deep woods hiking that I do, but somewhere that we would both like, a nice kind of scenic walk. I would add to it maybe.
It's very charming.
Oh yeah.
Who knew Halloween was so romantic?
It's very romantic.
know?
My wife did get sick from drinking the night we got married.
Yeah, that's what's wrong. That's the Irish way.
Yeah, well, she's Brazilian, so she's just adopted our culture extremely well. And we actually eloped as well. We went out to Copenhagen. But I think, yeah, we went to a lovely rock bar, and they were really tough looking people. And I was like, oh, maybe we've picked the wrong bar. Or like, I'm in a suit, she's in a dress, and there's 3 other people with us. And then they were super sweet, and they started bringing us all these free drinks. So I can only partially blame Paola for what happened later. So so yeah.
We weren't originally going to elope, but I have a huge family, Catholic, and
Yeah, it happens.
and Allison has a much smaller family, and we were going to do immediate family, and all Allison's parents requested is that her aunt be allowed to come because they have a much smaller family.
Right.
And my parents, as soon as they heard that, said, "Well, then your aunt's coming."
Yeah.
And I said, "Done. It's over."
Yeah.
Okay.
Never mind.
Right,
So we didn't
Never
tell
mind.
anybody, and we just told them later.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot to be said for that, I think, to be honest. Like,
It's a lovely,
yeah.
like we sent in a group message, and then everyone was like, all right, and he didn't have to do anything. My dad said it's his favorite wedding he's ever been at because he didn't even have to do a talk or a speech or anything.
Allison's father thanked me, like shook my hand and thanked me for doing it that way. He's like, yeah, I did not want to deal with he's a very sweet guy and can get emotional at times like that. I think he was just happy that he didn't have to do a big public thing.
Did you do is it a thing over in America? Did you ask for the father's permission?
We were already living together and owned a house together. So
we'd already bought a house together.
Oh, okay, yeah. You're in our boat then, so we're kind of saying. But over here, it's very much a thing to ask the father's permission.
Did you do that in?
I did not.
Oh.
Well, we can't speak the same language, so it would have been tricky. But yeah, no, and so like I'm trying to learn Portuguese now, but when you're not sort of steeped in it, it's very difficult. So I'm gonna need to start watching, From in Portuguese, which should be an interesting experience. But no, we didn't. We kind of so Copenhagen is kind of like the Las Vegas of Europe. So if we had decided to get married in Ireland, there would have been so much sort of immigration stuff. And apparently it's quite taxing. You're just constantly being asked questions, blah, blah, blah. So we found a little loophole through a Mexican friend of mine who had done it previously. And then we just kind of said, okay, so we sort of decided in November, and then by January it was all done. And yeah, it was funny. I was very, I don't know about you guys, like I was very not skeptical or anything, but I was like, oh yeah, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I found I got like quite emotional when it was all happening, and then very thankful, I suppose, and happy that we had kind of done it all, because I was like, sure, what difference does it make, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it had a little bit of an extra oomph or something that I didn't necessarily expect it to have.
I just felt like a great weight around my neck, like a chain, like it was a very, very heavy chain that was dragging me under. No, I'm just kidding.
Wasn't it lightened though when I took your balls and put them in a box? Sorry, Brother Richard.
I know he would have laughed at that. He'd be into that.
Brother Richard can marry me, or I'm not getting married. That's the way I'm doing it.
Can monks marry?
He should be able to marry.
He
can.
can.
I'd say so. Yeah. So
He-
Brother
he's
Richard.
He's a priest monk, so he can do anything a priest can do.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Get that in now. So Brother Richard's going to be at my wedding. What's this happening? Please, Brother Richard, if you're listening.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
I'm not entirely sure that ours counted from the lady that had us sign those papers. I mean, we've been filing our taxes together for all these years, but it might not really count. I don't know.
Yeah.
It didn't seem super official.
Yeah, it was funny because when we went to Copenhagen, they speak, like, everyone kind of speaks English over there, but it was a 10-minute ceremony, very quick. But the lady who did it looked like kind of a forest nymph or something. She had this kind of green sort of hood, and my buddy from Mexico had said to me, just think like the force is with you when you're getting married. And I was like, what are you talking about, Yam? But then so sort of, and then she takes the hood down and she sort of has a little talk about how it's, you're making a big decision, etc. And then the background was kind of a wooded green sort of finish on it, and I was like, I get it now. But yeah, very strange little ceremony that we had. And then I get all teary and stuff, and I was like, shut up. No one cares. I don't even care about this. It's just purely legal, whatever.
Was it just the two of you?
It was the two of us, and my parents came, and Paola's best friend held her. So he lives in London. And my folks are in Wexford, and we would have lived in Dublin at the time. So I think Rob and his cousin knew. They were the only people I had told, and Paola maybe told one or two other people, and it was just really quick. And yeah, it was so everyone had something to do, so someone had to be the witness, and someone had to bring the ring out, and then I think my dad had to do something. I think he just observed and made sure no one made any mistakes. But yeah, it was very nice. It was very nice.
You don't need witnesses in Pennsylvania, or at least you didn't at that time. So it was just us and the celebrant. That was it.
Ah, lovely.
Down in Hex Hollow.
And what was like? was that I mean, I've never seen Hex Hollow, but I've heard you talk about it before. Was it like a daytime ceremony and kind of a nice?
It was getting towards evening.
Okay.
Sort
It
of
was
magic hour kind of
Yeah.
time.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
that sounds
and
nice.
we got married right by a creek, which has since kind of the area where we actually stood and got married was by a stone wall, and it's been sort of enveloped by the creek at this point.
Mm.
Yeah, it doesn't look at all the same.
Yeah,
And I think, didn't they take away the bridge there because
yeah, it was
part of it went back to being private property as opposed to part of a park. And so they took away this bridge which allowed access for the public. And so there's really no reason to go back in that area anymore. And it just kind of looks different than it did at the time. It was kind of spontaneous. We were just kind of driving around trying to find a spot, and it was getting darker and darker. And we're like, I guess that'll do.
it ended up being a pretty little spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds nice.
It's a cool name as well, Hex Hollow. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
We knew we were going to do Strange Familiars in the future.
Yeah.
You had already actually had like a little a record that you had named Strange Familiars that we were both on, and so I think you were
the first Stone Breath record was called Strange.
You say you were both on. Do you play instruments, Alison, or sing?
Not at all. It was just sort of like so Tim wouldn't feel alone. It's like Strange Familiars now. So Tim doesn't feel like he's talking to himself. He's a little less crazy if he can pretend someone else is there.
Cool.
Yes, yeah. So she appears on the record literally in a photo, but not
cool.
not.
I used to do like little things, like I'd write some lyrics and I'd do
nice.
some lettering
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Indeed. Well, we've come to the end of the questions. So
Halloween is upon us, yeah.
It is.
It's time to get spooky tonight then, folks, right? This episode will be out the day of Halloween, so hopefully our listeners are all going to have a good night.
Eat lots of sweet. Well, I suppose at a certain age you don't really eat sweets anymore. I've already started eating the sweets that I'm supposed to give to the kids, so I might have to go back to the shop.
We cherry pick the good ones out of it. The stickers are all gone.
Man, I'm
kids.
I think, do you guys call it taffy? Is that like it's not coffee, but it's the bendy sort of, you can get sour taffy and things like that.
Starburst and shit.
Starburst, yeah.
Taffy,
I'm addicted to that, but I only have enough willpower to not buy it. So I'm already devouring like all this vomit colored taffy.
Taffy is the best. It's my favorite. It's my favorite.
They have, and I don't know if this is like a universal thing or if this is just a here. I would only ever see it when I would go to the beach in Maryland, Ocean City, Maryland. And they would have what they called saltwater taffy.
That's right. Yeah. I've heard of saltwater taffy. Yeah.
And it was amazing.
Yeah. Like it's everywhere here. Well, like Starburst is kind of taffy-ish, right? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. Those little cubes or little blocks.
It's kind of like, usually it's more toffee flavored, is it? And you get the citrusy ones, or is it just the general?
I think it's the consistency and how it's made, I think, is what kind of constitutes the taffy rather than the taste, or rather than the flavor. But there's loads. Yeah, we have a bunch here. It's actually quite popular, I would say. Loads of different types of. There's ones called Mawam. There's Chewits.
Yeah, Chewits.
There's Frutella.
Frutella there as well.
Is that like Nutella but with fruit?
Well, yeah, maybe.
It's just like a fruit punch.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, but like I swear to God, it must have been created by big dentistry or something.
That's what I was gonna say, because after the age of like 13, you can't really eat that without like.
Well, that's why I have no teeth.
Yeah, I have two sort of dodgy fillings here, and you're sort of trying to eat it with your really far back teeth and your wisdom teeth and stuff.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, we'll have to do. I still want to do that chip swap someday. If maybe
it's
going to cost us $50 to do it or something. But
do you know what? Actually, I don't know whether I discovered this at the time when I was talking to you, but I actually sent it out to one of our listeners one time as a thank you. But there is a company here in Ireland, I can't remember the name of them, but they actually do send out boxes of Irish produce, and you can actually pick what's in it. So maybe I'll send you out one of those via that. It actually works out cheaper as well, like shipping wise, because like the shipping here is just stupid. But failing that, I can throw together a box, no problem. It's actually quite fun doing that as well. So
yeah, we should do it like a chip versus crisp taste.
Yeah, we should do a YouTube video.
I think when you eat potato crisps or chips,
You're fighting losing
life-changing.
battle. Listen,
Yeah,
listen.
I
Use
Did you have like the
Yanks
crazy
don't know nothing
flavors?
about crisps.
like I lived in Canada and I used to eat the Lays or whatever, but when I came back to Ireland, I was like, even just like
That's
the Ridgy crisps,
listen.
like oh,
Listen, they're Irish potatoes. Listen,
Look, the Pennsylvania Dutch know their way around a potato. Let me
you're
tell you.
getting them. You're getting them 3 Mile Island radiated potatoes.
Yeah, we
I
are.
don't know where you are.
We're within the instant death range. So.
We're
When I was a
getting
kid,
them.
we were evacuated 1 mile down the road to my elementary school during 3 Mile Island.
Oh, I well believe it. Yeah, it's very close to you guys. But no, I'm
Mhm.
telling you, Irish potatoes, Irish spuds, Irishmen have died over them.
way too many because we
And-
didn't rotate the
No.
crop. Like that was a big problem for us back then.
No, I think actually, look, we've done quite a few American. Actually, one of our most viewed YouTube video is us tasting American snacks, by quite a margin actually. And
That's better than all this
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
It's cool.
And
It's just
a lot
us
of-
eating American snacks.
a lot of them are really good. There was one. There was the kind of like a biscuit thing that we really liked. Was it Nilla wafers? Was it Nilla?
Ah, Nilla
Was it-
wafers. Yeah,
I like a
the
Nilla
vanilla
wafer.
flavored. Mhm.
Yeah, I meant to
Grew
Nilla
up on
wafer.
those. We always had a box of Nilla wafers in the house.
Yeah, they're good. They're
I
know
think
what's
because they're
good?
cheaper than regular cookies.
You know what's good?
Yeah.
You put some peanut butter on them.
Oh, I said that's
Ooh.
good. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
they're tasty. They're tasty.
Good.
We'll definitely do that for sure. And Alison, you have to come on Strange Familiar. You have to come on Monster Fuzz now as the Strange Familiar representative on your own.
Oh, I like it. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, without being tethered.
Yeah.
Editor.
You can say anything you want.
Say whatever I
Rob
want.
doesn't even edit. Don't worry about it.
That's my trade secret.
Trade secret.
Well, happy Halloween.
Yeah, happy
Yeah,
Halloween,
Yeah,
guys.
happy Halloween to you guys.
Happy Halloween, folks.
And to all the listeners, happy Halloween. And I guess we'll do this again soon. We always
Yeah.
do a Christmas show too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for
All right.
listening, everyone.